Welcome back to the Thermo Diet Podcast. I'm your host, JAyton Miller, and I'm here with my co-host, Tyler Woodward.
How you doing today, JAyton?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. Today's podcast is brought to you by Mucuna Pruriens, our dopamine boosting supplement.
Yes, one of my favorite supplements that I actually just recently started taking again, so I'm excited to possibly reap some of the benefits.
Yeah, I might mess around and take it again as well.
Yeah, I like it. 20% L-Dopa concentration in there. Really effective.
Yeah, so it's going to be a precursor to dopamine, and that brings us to L-tyrosine, which is an amino acid, and brings us to our episode today, talking about protein.
Yeah. So whenever it comes to protein, what do you think are the most important factors?
So it really depends on what your goal is here. So Ray P talks about the military study that they did, which is basically saying that everyone should be getting about 100 grams of protein daily. After that, I think it really comes down to what your goal is. So if you're going for muscle building, it looks like about 0.82 grams per pound of body weight is the maximum effective dose. So that's if you weigh 200 pounds, it's 164 grams of protein. And you typically want most of that coming from the essential amino acids. So it looks like leucine, which is one of the 3 BCAAs or branched chain amino acids, is the main driver of muscle protein synthesis, or at least in signaling in it. Other than that, it doesn't really matter. It seems like what amino acids you get, so collagen, casein, or whey. It's just a matter of getting enough leucine, which you typically get from eggs, beef, chicken, meat, whatever. There's not much in collagen. Oh, and there's milk too. But collagen has its own unique benefits. So you want to talk about that?
Yeah. So first of all, as far as the amount of protein goes, like if you do your calculations, and for men, if you're under 120 grams, I would at least hit 120 grams. Mm-hmm. And then if you're a woman, if it's under 80 grams, I would at least hit 80 to 85 grams a day, kind of like as a minimum effective dose. Mm-hmm. And then like beyond that, if you calculate it and it's above those 2 numbers, then generally it's going to be okay.
Yeah, and it's largely going to depend both your activity level and your size. Mm-hmm. So Jayton weighs like 190. I'm like 210 right now. So I'm going to have a larger protein requirement, and we're both pretty active, so we're going to have larger protein requirements than someone that just sits at a desk all day and weighs 120 pounds. So that's going to be a large factor as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, also whenever you have a higher carb diet, carbs are going to be protein sparing, so your protein needs aren't as high as they would be if you were on like a low carb diet or something like that.
100%. And you also want to make sure to consume protein with your carbs typically, as protein is pretty insulinogenic depending on the amino acids. So it's going to cause an release of insulin, which by itself is kind of a waste if you don't have any carbs. So you want to consume those together as they help to balance each other out, maybe with a little fat as well.
Yeah, so protein alone is going to cause your blood sugar to dip because it doesn't have any fuel to pull out of the bloodstream. Mm-hmm. And then those carbohydrates are going to provide the fuel to pull out of the bloodstream.
Sir. And the fat helps to basically delay the release. So it just doesn't lower your blood sugar as low as fast.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of sustained.
Yes, sir. And so then how do you like to get your protein in?
Honestly, recently it hasn't been as consistent just because I have one big protein meal at the end of the day. So I'll probably have like anywhere from 8 to 10 grams of beef or ounces of beef. And then I'll have like some bone broth that I'll sprinkle in there, and then maybe an egg or 2 that I'll toss in there and scramble in there with it. And then, maybe a little bit of protein from the potatoes or something like that. Mm-hmm. In the mornings, it's like, maybe like 24 grams of protein with the eggs that I'm eating, and then maybe 10 after the milk and the sourdough and everything else like that. So I'm probably getting anywhere from, and depending on if I have like an Epic bar or something, I'm probably getting in around 130 grams a day, somewhere around there, if I really guess. So it's actually really low, but I haven't really noticed any kind of like muscle loss or anything like that. Like my carb intake is probably extremely high, relatively speaking. And my fat intake is probably a little bit higher than it has been in most of my thermo experience, I would say. So most of it's just coming from food. I don't really supplement that much. Every once in a while, I'll use a little bit of collagen with like some milk, makes like a chocolate milkshake with some collagen in it or something like that. But yeah, mostly it's just coming from food. I don't really supplement with much.
Gotcha. Yeah, I like my protein supplements. I'll do a smoothie at least once a day. So I'll do usually scoop collagen. Sometimes before I work out, or preferably after I work out, I'll get my anabolic chocolate milk in. So that'll be a scoop of, I'll use naked casein because we don't have a casein yet, which is chocolate. And then I'll use a scoop of our collagen with some milk, which is milk is 80% casein, 20% whey, which I think is a perfect balance of amino acids and helps to like casual release of blood sugar or the amino acids so your blood sugar doesn't drop. Versus all whey, it's going to be large release of blood sugar, large release of insulin as well. I'll do the same thing pretty much. I'll do eggs in the morning, get some protein, and then a big protein meal at night with some beef, and then I'll sprinkle some bone broth in. And then I'll do a smoothie or two and maybe some ice cream, which has some protein. And then I do a lot of milk as well. But I'm about to start cutting back on some fat, do more, probably try to do like 15-20% fat, 15-20%, or probably about 20% amino acids, protein, and then 60+% carbs.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Heck yeah. And that's for the summer shred, right?
Summer shred, yeah. I'm going to see how much fat I can lose without really doing a big deficit. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be cool too because I could potentially gain some muscle on it too, especially with those insulin sparing effects and getting enough protein. And if I'm doing like 10 to 15% fat or maybe even up to 20%, still going to have probably enough fat to keep my testosterone levels pretty high. Just going to be ramping up my protein or my carbs, which will help to ramp up thyroid and metabolic rate and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. So do you want to kind of go from like the least effect, like the worst protein to the best? Maybe do like a scale.
Mm-hmm. So it's also going to depend on what part of the animal it's from, but and like where the sources, so like whey, casein, collagen. You know, like there's going to be nuance between those. But so generally, I think the order goes: collagen is the best, casein followed by whey. For the reason that collagen, about 50% of the protein in animals are from collagenous meats, but pretty much no one eats those anymore unless you're making oxtail or chicken head or feet soup or fish head soup. I don't think anyone makes chicken head soup. So the glycine, proline, and isoproline, hydroxyproline, sorry, are very beneficial amino acids, and you're only getting those from collagenous meats. So we typically, back in the day, when we ate a nose-to-tail diet, because we ate all the animal, we would get a lot of collagenous meat. So if you're not doing that, I think it's important to get a collagen supplement in.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say also eating like the organ meats and stuff like that is going to help kind of bridge that gap there too. So eating liver a couple times a week, getting in some oysters. Scallops are really high in glycine.
And taurine too.
Yeah, shrimp is really high in glycine. So shellfish is going to be really good if you're trying to kind of bridge that gap there. Whenever it comes to plant proteins, potatoes are probably going to be the best source of plant protein that you can get. And then from there, I would say that, mushrooms are really good. I think lion's mane has all the essential amino acids in it. So mushrooms would probably be the second best plant protein. And then outside of that, I really don't see any plant protein that's going to be beneficial in my opinion.
No, it's a tough scene.
Yeah, especially because like there's a bunch of trypsin inhibitors and a bunch of stuff like that come with the plants that are going to inhibit the proper digestion of those foods. And you're not going to be able to actually break down as much protein and pull it from those foods. So, if you're on a plant-based diet, you're probably going to have to eat about 3 pounds of potatoes a day to get enough protein if you're trying to make sure that you're not protein deficient.
So that's why you drink some milk, meat, and eggs.
Yeah.
But so I think milk is pretty perfect protein. It can be a little higher in fat if you're doing whole milk, but the vitamins in whole milk are also very beneficial. You're getting some A, a little bit of D, a little bit of E, and a little bit of K. And milk is very cool because it's about 80% casein and 20% whey. So whey protein is going to be pretty high in tryptophan, which isn't perfect, but it's going to basically the casein and the whey kind of help to balance each other out. So you have a longer digesting protein. So casein's slow digesting, whey is fast digesting, which means it's going to get into your bloodstream faster than the casein. But so they help to like level each other out and make a casual, slow release of amino acids. So it helps to keep muscle protein synthesis high. So I think milk is a pretty good anabolic protein.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and whenever you're looking at your meat, if you want to get down to the nitty gritty, like looking at the amino acids that you're eating, and like, if you're eating mostly muscle meats, you're going to have a lot of methionine, a lot of cysteine, and a lot of tryptophan. So in order to counterbalance that, you want to make sure that you add a lot of glycine and proline-rich foods alongside that. So, that's why a lot of people in the pro-metabolic sphere tend to add a lot of gelatin to their meats and stuff like that. We mentioned adding some powdered bone broth to our meat. You can do collagen as well.
Bone broth's delicious, though. I love it.
Yeah, bone broth is good. I even like getting so I'll sprinkle some of that on, and sometimes it'll get kind of dry and clumpy. So I'll get like liquid bone broth on the side and kind of pour that in there as well. And it kind of helps it mix a little bit better. So I'll just add maybe like 4 tablespoons or something like that to it, just to liquefy it a little bit.
I can see that, especially with rice going pretty well too. Like it gets the rice nice and juicy.
Yeah, it tastes good for sure.
Yeah, and it's all about just like helping. So balancing, is it cysteine and methionine, and then glycine and methionine. So the more methionine you take in, you're gonna need more glycine. Most of us are pretty deficient in glycine. Glycine is gonna be collagen. We're also made of a lot of collagen. Our bones, hair, nail, tissues, joints, all collagenous tissues. And so glycine is considered a conditionally essential amino acid, which means that as long as you're getting adequate protein out of the essential amino acids, you don't technically need to consume glycine. But glycine is going to be very, very beneficial. It's a precursor to glutathione, which is the body's main antioxidant. It's going to help you strengthen your hair, hair, joints, nails, teeth, probably. Glycine, it's very anti-stress. I wrote an article called Glycine, the amino acid that keeps on giving, for all glycine's very extraordinary benefits. Highly recommend checking that out if you want to learn more about glycine. But getting enough glycine is extremely important, and it's going to come from predominantly gelatin or collagenous meats or bone broth.
Definitely. I had a question in my head, and then it left me. So, you got any questions?
So as far as eggs, so you'll see in the bodybuilding sphere that people love their egg whites. Egg whites aren't bad. Some people in the pro-metabolic sphere will only consume the yolks. I think that's just a waste of food. I think they help to balance each other out. But so whites are going to be pretty high in tryptophan. They're also going to be very high in leucine, which is why the bodybuilders like them. But I think the yolk and the egg together help to balance each other out. You want to make sure you can do the egg yolks raw. You do not want to consume the egg whites raw because they have this protein called avidin, which binds to vitamin B7 and can deplete you. If you consume one raw egg white, it's not going to be a big deal, but not something you want to do consistently. And the cholesterol in the egg yolks can be very beneficial, in my opinion, for boosting testosterone and all that stuff, which could help to help more muscle building, less fat, all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you start sprinkling some gelatin or collagen on your food and you decide that you don't like it, might look into making like some Jello gummies or something like that.
Great snack too.
Yeah, they're great. You can make them super delicious. Just depends on your skill level as far as cooking and stuff like that goes, I'd say. But I've made like some lemon ones that were really good, made some pineapple ones that were really good. You can just get some real cheap molds off of Amazon and a good amount of gelatin, and then they take probably like 15 minutes to make.
Yeah, it'll help a lot of people sleep too. A lot of people like it before sleep. But I also think like getting a smoothie in a day, I think not everyone likes to do that. Or like you can do like a milkshake or something is beneficial as well. But I think getting that dose of fruit, even if it's frozen, doesn't really matter, with some collagen is just going to be very beneficial. And I throw my creatine and my taurine in there as well.
Nice. Yeah.
And so meats are going to also have some interesting amino acids. So creatine supplementation is pretty common these days. It's one of the most beneficial supplements for bodybuilding. Basically just helps to increase the amount of energy in your muscle cells, helps you perform better in the gym, which translates to more muscle growth. So creatine's found in meat. But in order to get enough creatine, to get 5 grams of creatine, which is the recommended dose, typically you have to eat like 3.3 pounds of steak, I believe is the, the math. Taurine is found primarily in poultry, right?
I'm not really sure.
I think it's primarily found in poultry and maybe some organ meats as well. Taurine's going to be really helpful for increasing your bile production, so that's going to help you detoxify estrogen. improve your digestion a little bit probably and increase the amount of nutrients you absorb. Theanine is really cool. So theanine is an amino acid predominantly found in green tea. I read a study yesterday that found theanine it was a rat study, that it was just as effective as an antihistamine, so like lowering allergies, as the actual antihistamine drugs. It's actually more effective. I think that's really good for sleep. Also really helps. Glycine also really helps to decrease leaky gut. So does theanine. And exercise. I used to stacking those together pre-workout for a while. Anything else that you like to take or mess around with? What about carnitine?
I don't really mess around with carnitine that much because there's some studies that showed that it can actually lower thyroid hormone production. So I'm not a huge fan of carnitine. I think that the naturally occurring carnitine is enough for most people. There are some potential benefits for muscle building and things like that in some studies, but the potential downsides of it kind of keep me from experimenting with it.
Have you ever done beta alanine?
I've messed with a little bit of beta alanine. I've messed with different doses, so I definitely don't like the higher doses because of the flushing effect that gets and your skin gets super itchy.
Yeah, feels weird.
Yeah, it makes me feel like a drug addict just sitting there itching my face. So I'm not a huge fan of the higher doses, but I've messed around with lower doses of it a little bit, and I would say it is probably very similar to getting like a good dose of sodium bicarbonate before a workout.
I can't remember the mechanism. I'm not sure if you know it, but it basically helps to buffer lactic acid, so it helps you perform longer, and also it's going to help you just decrease the amount of damage you do during the workout, which is going to be very beneficial.
Yeah, that was actually one of the only supplements that Nicholas Simpson took along with a good glycine supplement.
Okay. Yes, and so then I think getting some, if we're talking about muscle building, so your most insulin sensitive time, which basically when you can consume the most food without and burn the most energy, so like store the least fat, I think it's important to get protein after your workout. Doesn't have to be right away, but you'll probably, the closer you get it to your workout, probably be able to burn the most energy. That's a like workout period. What's called like the whatever it's called, like the workout building, the anabolic window they call it. I think getting some pre-workout as well. In like in your pre-workout, just having some amino acids in your blood will just help to decrease muscle protein breakdown a little bit. You don't want to decrease muscle protein breakdown too much because it can also decrease muscle protein synthesis. But I think that's pretty good. And then probably before sleep.
Yeah, the reason that you don't want to block the breakdown of it is because that actually is what signals the building process, correct?
I think so. I don't know. It's like there's some conflicting data. I don't think they exactly know. I just think it helps to just lower the release of cortisol, in my opinion. So like how much the stress hormone is released. But you could be right, or you probably are right in some respect. It's gonna happen regardless, unless you're taking like a maybe aspirin or something, which is why you wouldn't want to take aspirin pre-workout. But I think having not doing a protein workout fasted is probably the most important thing.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, for sure. That's from both a stress perspective, just keeping your body from being at like extremely catabolic, and also from a muscle building perspective too.
Yeah. And it's important to you want to get some carbs in before workout too, just to A, go with the protein, but also B, just to give your muscles and your liver some energy to keep going. I also like to drink sugar, or during my workouts, I'll drink lemonade. I don't think you want to do intra-workout amino acids for the reason you said before. I just think it's good to have like not be low as basically like fasting. Like you don't want to go into running on E, but I don't think you want to do intra-workout protein because it might shunt muscle protein synthesis.
Yeah, blunt it.
Yeah, not shunt.
What do you think about the branched chain amino acids?
So the branched chain amino acids are really interesting. Like we said before, leucine is probably the most important one. So there was an interesting study that as long as you match leucine intake, it basically didn't matter what kind of protein you had. So it could be whey, could be casein, could be collagen. The issue with that is collagen's pretty low in leucine. So unless you're just supplementing with leucine, it doesn't really matter. Like you're gonna get most of the leucine from casein or whey, not from collagen. So like most people aren't just gonna add. It's not gonna be biologically natural to just get it in your meal. So unless you're supplementing with leucine, you probably have to do some whey or casein with your regular protein intake. But the branched chain amino acids, I think, are a little bit overhyped. I think they are beneficial, but I don't necessarily see a need to get them to supplement with them outside of your regular food.
Yeah. I agree with that. I'm not a huge fan of branched chain amino acid supplements. I think that, especially if you can get it from food, it's kind of just a waste of money.
Yeah, I mean, there's some research, like Haslam has an article on the N1 training website, that they're anabolic and anti-catabolic. So they help to prevent muscle protein breakdown, which is what anti-catabolic means. But again, I don't really think, unless you're fasting, which again, we don't recommend. I was fasting for a while, doing fasted workouts. Probably good to have a BCAA supplement just to get some amino acids, or essential amino acid supplement. I don't know how much of a difference it makes, but I don't just recommend fasting. So I would just get your BCAAs from food. Milk has a good amount, beef, eggs, all going to be good sources of all that.
Absolutely. Sweet. And, if you're always in a pinch, a good bone broth supplement, good collagen supplement, even a casein supplement, always good to try out.
Yes, sir.
Sweet. I don't think I got anything else.
I think that's about it.
Sweet. Well, thanks for listening. If you are not in the Facebook community yet, make sure to jump into the Thermo Diet community. And if there's any kind of topics or anything like that you'd like to see, make sure to let us know inside of there or inside of Umzu Fit, which is our educational platform for Umzu.
Yep. Thanks, JAyton. Have a good one, everyone.
Peace.